actions like we're still waiting for maybe in this country, some kind of a tipping point that would actually send us all to the streets and occupations, total occupation permanently of the streets, so no business as usual can be conducted. Just a couple other things that I learned while I was in the hospital, while all this was going on at the tracks. On September 17th or something like that, the first investigator came to question me in the hospital, and the first question the investigator asked me was, when did you start planning to board the train? That is, hijack. I was like, what? Where did that come from? Well, the very next day, somebody showed me an article from the Peoria, Illinois newspaper that headlined, FBI agent fired for refusing to investigate terrorists. I read the article. Oh, I was one of the 6 terrorists he refused to investigate, which was just, again, shocking to me. Like, how can this be? How can somebody like me, who basically studied Gandhi and studied nonviolence, be considered a terrorist? Well, as you know, it's really not that difficult to be considered a terrorist if you are questioning the status quo and actually putting your life out there. So that was kind of an explanation of how, because I didn't really understand how that could have happened. But at any rate, I recovered from that, even though I have a plate in my skull and I have these prostheses, and all my ribs were cracked, and all my right wrist was broken, my right elbow was broken, my right shoulder was broken, my left elbow was broken, my left ear was completely cut off and was sewn on remarkably by an Iranian plastic surgeon in the hospital. And so I'm just happy that I'm still around and still cycling. I've been hand cycling for 14 years, and I've done 55,000 miles on my hand cycle. And I'm, as you probably know, when I'm hand cycling on this book tour to San Francisco from Portland, going from town to town to demonstrate that I can actually move my body by a cycle rather than by fossil fuel car, just to say, okay, I'm doing it. People told me in Portland, no, you can't really do that. I said, well, I'm gonna start and see where it ends. So I think I'll stop there, and I would be happy to entertain questions or comments or anything you want to clarify. Or, I mean, there's so much in here that's it's kind of overwhelming myself when I look at my own book. It's a journey that I couldn't have imagined growing up in a farming community where I fished for 12 years on Goose Creek without a serious thought in my head, and my dog jumping off in the creek and coming up and sitting next to me. And so, at any rate, life's a journey, and the more of it's a journey, the more interesting it becomes. Question here? The question was, my epiphany was a result of kind of an extreme experience, and is there other ways that we can anticipate or hope for these kind of changes, or kind of an epiphany? I have no answer. I just know life is a journey, and everybody's on a journey, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. It's not a destination. It's a process. And I'm sure, I mean, I know lots of people that are very acutely aware that did not have experiences like I have. So, I mean, I was very slow. I'm a very slow learner. I had a lot of reasons to be a slow learner because I was actually content as a young adult. I wasn't looking for any changes. I wasn't looking for a consciousness shift. I was really content to just resume my life. Probably I'd be a successful lawyer and make a lot of money and have a good American life. So, but I know really lots of people who later became teachers and mentors of mine who did not have any kind of an experience like this, but they really were quite aware of how insane modern civilization, Western civilization is, and live in different ways. And I'm sure there's an infinite number of ways people can have experiences, or reading a book, or listening to music, or being in nature, or looking at a sunset or sunrise that will be a provocative inspiration to that stretches you out of the box of contentment that we're so good at in the Western world. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that have lots of different answers to that, and I really, it's kind of shocking to me that I had the experience. I wasn't, it was, as I said, I put my head in my hands and I'm not going to be one of the guys. I really wanted to be one of the guys, and but it was fortunate because in a way I was salvaged. I was basically saved as a human being, which I'm still learning about 42 years after being in the village. Are there other questions? Greg?
I haven't got there in the book yet, but what are...
The question is about whether the attempted murder was targeted, or on me specifically. Well, I'm not a very conspiratorial thinker, so I have to have a lot of evidence to kind of establish my premises about what happens and what doesn't happen. We were put on the terrorist list a year earlier, the four of us fasting on the steps of the Capitol. There were four of us veterans. We sat there for 47 days. It was an open-ended fast, and we only stopped the fast when one of our members was getting near death. We didn't learn that we were put on the terrorist list at the time, but we did make a statement that we had 500 solidarity actions around the country with our fast. And we found out later that the FBI was very nervous about the fact that our fast was provoking these solidarity actions around the country. Now, on September 1st, as Greg just said, the train was speeding at 3 times the legal speed limit, which was 5 miles an hour, and the train was speeding at 16 to 17 miles an hour. And we did find out that the train crew was ordered that morning not to stop the train. And we tried to find out how many levels of chain of command that went up, and we got up to at least the base commander. We don't know if it went to Washington or not. But we do know that the base commander sent a cable to, and a copy of the cable's in the book, sent a cable to Washington and said that the escalation is the protest has escalated to now being present on the steps, on the tracks, and not willing to move for any train, and that the protesters will be removed by the police, so there should be no problems. That was dated August 31st, the day before September 1st. It was clearly an attempted murder, and by the way, one of the other 2 veterans on the tracks, Duncan Murphy, was also one of the 4 veterans who fasted a year earlier on the steps, who was on the terrorist watch list. So there were 2 of us on that list, and the only explanation can be is that it was an attempted murder to target those of us who were just plain not gonna, we just aren't gonna stop, trying to interfere with murder. And several newspapers did call it an attempted murder, including the San Francisco Chronicle and the San Francisco Examiner. At least columnists were calling it an attempted murder. So we know that the FBI, oh, by the way, the FBI agent who spilled the beans was actually fired after 22 years in the FBI. He and I became really good friends, and he showed me the FBI files. And a copy of the letter he sent to his superiors is in the book, in which he says he will refuse to investigate us as terrorists, which led to his being fired. And he and I have become very close friends. We travel together. We do a lot of things together. And he's 72, and he's one of my heroes because, he followed his, basically his conscience.